It was a great environment, and the musicians there, like Jelly Roll Morton, they soaked up the sounds around them.
Of course, you got to have these little tinges of Spanish in it in order to play real good jazz.
He heard the Latin music that was permeating the local environment. Jelly Roll was the individual that best forged all these elements together. He was in the right environment that allowed him to take his own traditions, his own African-American traditions, the sounds that he grew up with, and then bring all these other American sounds into the mix.
The mixing of styles in jazz produced music like nothing that had been heard before. But fusion was only part of what made jazz unique. The early jazz masters, Morton, King Oliver, Sidney Bechet, Louis Armstrong, not only borrowed from other styles, they improvised their parts, creating new melodies spontaneously as they played.
If you listen to some of the earliest jazz musicians, for example, King Oliver, he had a solo called Dippermouth Blues, which was very influential. If you look at it notated, he's only playing 2 or 3 notes over and over again. But when you listen to him, it's tremendously vital. It's tremendously exciting.
Since the earliest days, jazz musicians have made improvisation the center of their art and used it to convey their feelings directly to their audience.
If you can be a great jazz musician, it's not because your fingers are faster than everyone else's. It's because you can plunge yourself into the immediacy of the moment and draw all the energy, all the intensity and vitality of everything you've learned, and put it to play in that moment.
And you have to control it. You have to do that so that it feels like something, and it makes no difference whether I feel it or not, but I have to make you feel it.
Billy Taylor was born in 1921 and grew up mesmerized by the early jazz masters.
I grew up in Washington, D.C. The Howard Theater in Washington, D.C. was terrific, and each week a different band would come to Washington, D.C., and I get to hear them. And it was wonderful because it only cost 35 cents, you know, and so even I could afford that.
Surrounded by jazz as a child, Taylor decided he would one day add his own voice to the music.
I was fascinated. I had an uncle who played stride piano, and that was the way he played. And I said, oh yeah, that's, I want to do that. And I could hear the left hand, and I could hear all of this stuff going on. And so I told my dad, I said, I want to play like Uncle Bob. She said, no, you have to study, learn how to play properly. Uncle Bob plays by ear, and he's, I said, yeah, but, I want to play like that, Uncle Bob gave me my first fast swallow, my first Art Tatum records. And that Tatum record just knocked me out. I mean, I never heard anybody play piano like that. Several friends of mine, when they first heard Art Tatum, said, who are those 2 guys? I mean, because he sounded literally like 2 people playing piano. But be able to play by ear and to learn something immediately, just on hearing it, that fascinated me. I wanted to do that. It took me a long time to learn how to do it, but I managed it.
Taylor not only mastered playing jazz, he became a skilled composer as well.